Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Geeks From The Multiverse. This one's going to be one of our Evolve episodes. That's right, we're going to be talking about men's mental health awareness because, after all, we are in June, and that's what June is about. It's not about anything else. It's not Candy Month. It's not Selfie Month. It's not whatever National Safety Month is. It's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we're going to talk about it. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Geeks from the Multiverse. This is one of our Evolve episodes. If you don't know what Evolve is, we've done a bunch of them already. It's basically we are trying to help you guys and help everybody who's listening to just be a better person. And that's what Evolve is all about. Adapting, overcoming, and being a better person.
You know, you couldn't have said it any better, Matt, but thank you for not mentioning me. So, boys and girls, this is your boy John, as always, since, I know he was on a tangent there. It's okay. But, anyways, guys, I mean, this is, again, June is apparently, like we've been kind of mentioning before, this is Men's Mental Health Month. So, when Matt originally told me about this, I literally didn't even think about it for many years, he mentioned it to me, and all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute. So we actually had a month? Like, we actually had something that was supposed to be given to us in a sense? I'm not saying that, it's pretty sad that we just now figuring this out, even though technically good old Senator Bob Dole, we'll mention this guy.
Bob Dole.
He created this month, sent it up to Congress, did all this stuff, and made it official back in 1994. But we don't talk about this shit. And this is where it drives me nuts. So we're talking literally 30 years ago that this man created this shit, and we don't talk about it, and it's pretty fucking sad. Okay, man, I'm going to say my age. I'm 31 years old, and none of this shit ever popped up in my entire life, and all of a sudden Matt's like, hey, by the way, we had a month, and I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, this is some bullshit. Then now we talk about it, it's like, you're right, who gives a shit, no offense, about National Candy Month? Stop eating candy, goddammit.
I do love me some candy, but I do think men's mental health is a little bit more important than candy. It's kind of right there on that same level, but it's
well, okay. So let me put it like two other examples here. National Selfie Month. Who gives a fuck? No offense. I could take a selfie every day of the week for every day of the year. Who cares? That's literally every time that you ever take a photo with somebody.
It's not even Selfie Month is so stupid, but it's also National Hydration Month. Like, what the fuck is that? Like,
okay, you know what that means? It means that
drink
you need
your fucking water, John.
Exactly. Like, stop. Like, drink your fucking circle water there, Matt. Like you've been doing. Good job. Great use of what this month is. But you should do it all the fucking time, Matt, instead of this one goddamn month.
Great spelling on circle, by the way. You can't even fucking spell it. How do you spell circle? CIRKUL.
Imagine somebody like a spelling bee. Like, how do you spell circle? CIRK. Oh, yep. Get out of my fucking face. You don't realize that I'm like, you want to talk about how Americans don't even know how to pronounce shit, and you can't even spell fucking circle, and you're spelling it CIRKUL. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And I understand that's the brand. I understand it, and you guys are doing well with the whole water thing. That's for sure. But like, make sure that people understand, like, that is not actually how you spell that shit. Like, because, it's like, how do you say there, right? And then there's like 4 different ways to spell there. There. Hey, you are there. But yeah.
Yeah. It's also, supposed to be Effective Communication Month. And honestly, who gives a shit about it? And no offense. Communication Month.
Not only that, who actually in their right mind actually believes that there's actually effective communication in regards to everyone in the entire planet? Like, there's no such thing.
It is your, like, stereotypical nerd sitting at a desk going, hey, guys, I think it's Effective Communication Month. Make sure you're effectively communicating. And he's the guy that will send out the email to everybody in the office about how to send emails.
Bro, like, you do realize this is 2024, and if you don't know how to fucking work a computer, then you know what? There are actually YouTube videos maybe showing you exactly how to use a computer in that sense. But no, I agree, Matt. I think that this whole, society that we live in, we have these agendas, right? We have these things that we have to be more worried about. So, like, when good old, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, all these guys, okay, I'm going to say it, Democrats versus Republicans here. And I know we don't like to talk about politics, but like,
Don't go woke.
we don't want it, but no, that's what they did. This was back in 1999 when they started this shit, and then they kept going. So literally, Bill Clinton's like, hey, we're going to declare this as Gay and Lesbian Pride Month. Then Barack Obama in 2009 says, hey, you know what, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to basically call it LGBT. And then in 2021, Joe Biden's like, hey, you know what, we're going to add the Q to that.
Fuck the plus. They can...
No, but like I said, I mean, granted, I feel like the name's just going to continue us on, but it's going to have like the fucking alphabet soup at some point because, but it's neither there or here. I mean, the point is we're not caring about that particularly, but
yeah, I mean, I think the craziest thing is like, in 1999, Bill Clinton declared June as officially observed Gay and Lesbian Pride Month, and that's where I think the Men's Mental Health Awareness Month went on the wayside. But in 1994, October was officially, at least federally, was designated in October as LGBT History Month.
So, like, and this is kind of a random example here, and I know we're kind of going off a little tangent, but like, I remember an interview with, I think it was like Morgan Freeman, and they were talking about, Black History Month. And I remember him saying that, they wanted to ask about his opinion on this month. And they said, he's like, so, a question for you. He's like, do you care if you had a White History Month or an Asian History Month or any other month that basically regards race? He says, I don't care about a specific month regarding my culture, my race. He even states that in the interview, saying like, do you care if there was a white or like a Caucasian month? Or a Native American, like I know that there is for, Native Americans and so on and so forth, but we don't have a Caucasian History Month. And no offense, I don't care to have one personally because I think it's stupid.
No,
but like,
I mean, one would argue that that's probably every month, but
no, but like my point is like, he was even saying like, it doesn't matter. What he's saying is that yes, he was like, I appreciate the fact that yes, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, guys. If you didn't know this about history, yes, unfortunately, our history books have been lying to us literally for years. There's been a lot of great African American inventors and creators of different kinds. I mean, there's been shit that, again, Alexander Graham Bell, who created the telephone, he's black. Did you know that? But he created the damn telephone that we basically use now.
I probably didn't.
No, but like, and then I don't remember who, I can't remember his name. Off the top of my head, I think it was like George Carver or something like that. I don't know if he like did the peanut butter or I don't know. I can't. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm not familiar with all the like, innuendos history of that sense. But like, there's so many people that have done so much. What I'm saying is though, is like when it comes to like these months and everything else, it's more what we really should be looking at is like, yes, technically every day of the year we should be like noticing these things as a whole, as a society. I'm not just saying for males and females and whatever you want to call yourselves. What I'm saying is that, when you look at the men's mental health awareness, right? Really, you should be doing it all the time. Like if I notice that Matt's really upset or, really angry, like, I mean, I know that I've known this man for a long time now. If he gets angry, he gets angry, but like, what I'm trying to say is, man, is like, it shouldn't be literally a month based on, if he's basically angry for 1 month or whatever. No, I should be noticing this all the time because he's my friend. I should know if he's, a certain way, right? Or somebody else.
Right. And I think really what it comes down to is like, and I understand, we're not saying that like the LGBTQs do not deserve to be recognized or whatever. But when you're looking at Pride Month and you're looking at Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, they're two radically different things. Like you're talking about Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, that's an actual health concern for men, where you're actually talking about Pride Month, where you're actually talking about the history of people coming out as gay, lesbian, trans, or queer, I guess is the key, right? and them showing pride in that. Those are two radically different things.
Right. I mean, and you look at how mental health as a whole, as a society, have, in the last, like I just said, like we'll say 30, 40, maybe years, well, probably longer than that now, we've recognized the fact that, going to, let's say, therapy or, talking with somebody or doing whatever, like, it's important for our everyday life. I mean, I understand that Matt, for example, is an introvert. Okay. I understand that he likes being by himself. He can hang out, does whatever. But even as an introvert, just throwing it out there, and whether you're an extrovert or whatever, right? So an introvert, you're still going to need some social interaction, no matter, even if it's minute or whatever. Even an extrovert literally, in some ways, just needs time alone. So it's like, it's funny how that both, kind of works together in a sense. But like, as I think Matt and I really are trying to say with this really as a whole, is that when we start to look at the societal impact of how men, women, trans, queer, whatever you really want to, I guess, identify as, you need to start looking at how, as a whole, our mental health is really, I would say nowadays is even more imperative because, Matt and I actually, before this podcast, we were talking about it, and I wish we could just basically just kind of, do what we were doing before and just kind of bring it in now. But like, we talked about how, as men, generationally speaking, when you start to look at how men were basically acting as let's say, as a father figure or just a regular male in general, right? We were looking at how, mental health from the dawn of time up until a certain point, we were basically kind of, I guess, bred to basically embrace the suck, embrace, whatever it is that we're dealing with, leave it alone and don't ever talk about it again. And we're told to just leave it and that's it.
Right.
Right. Now, I would say probably in the 60s, 70s timeframe, that's when, of course, mental health and therapy and things kind of transpired a bit. Now, granted, why can't I think of his name? Sigmund Freud, granted, I know he was before all that too. Granted, he had a little bit of a little twisted mind in some of the ways he was, but he did make some sense in some of his theories and stuff. But like, moving forward with like Carl Jung, right? I'm thinking like the CBT and whatnot. So like all these people that have created these different types of therapies, they realized there was a need. There was a need because especially men, right? And I'll say this too, I think of another big one really, and this is, I know it's more for like, I would say military, and actually it's more of a general kind of audience, PTSD or PTS. Well, I think they decided to change it to PTSI really now, but I think they were doing it at the time.
I've heard it so many different things. Like I've heard it like PTSS, PTS.
So
it's,
from my understanding,
so many different things.
So when they originally called it was PTSD. It was post-traumatic stress disorder. Recently, I think in the last few years, they've changed it to PTSI, which is post-traumatic stress injury is what they initially added it. It's not really so much a disorder, but the point of the injury or really whatever this is someone basically living an event or survive. I'll say it, surviving let's say a particular traumatic event, whether if it was, somebody that was a soldier, that was a combat related, situation, or if it was a cop or a firefighter or whatever the case or something like that. That's where we would generally realize or like that, kind of, those kinds of people. But like, it could just be a regular person literally crossing the street and almost getting hit by a car or getting hit by something or whatever. And they could literally have years of stress and traumatic experience from that one moment. And it's now caused more grief and, pain, and they're suffering in a sense every single day.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm kind of going off a tangent here, but like, these are things that, that's just one small part of it. Like there's so many things like, we'll talk about a little bit of like the, some of the other like mental health concerns like schizophrenia or general anxiety or depression or, things of that nature. But like as men, when we were told to like embrace the suck, leave it alone, keep it to yourself. Don't ever talk about your feelings. Don't ever let another person see that men can cry. And I just going to say right now, that's a total lie and it's a total crock of fucking shit because it's stupid because as general human beings, we don't do that, man. Like I'll tell you right now, when my son was being born, now granted, this is a little touchy-feely for me, but like I was fucking scared, man. I was all kinds of shit. I mean, and the problem is, guys, I don't know if probably not a lot of you know this, but I'll still have fucking nightmares sometimes of this. Is like, my wife could have died while giving birth to my son because she lost 3.5 liters of blood. A typical human being has 5 liters of blood. That means she had 1.5 liters of blood still left in her system. She could have died on that table giving birth to my son. And the fucked up part about this, and I'm going to say it, is that he survived because, and I'll say it, he literally did not breathe for 45 fucking seconds because there was basically swelling in his brain a little bit and the fact that they couldn't get him out because he was stuck. And they basically, there was no oxygen, there was nothing. So like he got him out and the fucked up part about this was that the nurse, I looked straight at her and I said, did my son cry? Did he do anything when he came out? And she said, yeah, there was a faint cry. And that was a fucking lie because I didn't hear nothing. I heard literally nothing. And then I had to figure out on my own that my son was basically not breathing, basically not alive. Granted, they brought him back. But I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, how am I supposed to handle this situation? As a dad now coming to be, like, am I going to lose my wife who I just got married to? Am I going to lose my son that I just, helped basically create this life? And now am I going to see my son? These are things in my mind that I had to be strong in that moment. But like, thinking about it now and more, that for any parent is scary as hell. Like right. You don't know what's going to happen. And so, I'm only sharing with this, as a whole, guys, is because it's that kind of shit that as men, I would guarantee you if this was back in like the 40s and 50s, I'd just be like, suck it up, buttercup. It happens. It doesn't fucking happen. You don't know that. I mean, shit, there's so many things now that there's so many complications. There's so many things that now, granted, with technology, we've gone so far in advance, but that doesn't mean shit. Like if my son or my wife died, I got to now live with that pain, that grief, everything and above. Like, I don't know how I'd even function today. I don't even think I'd be doing this podcast. No offense, man. Like, that's just how I would be at right now because these are the kinds of things as men that as a whole, we just been told, leave it to the side. Don't talk about it. Yeah. And I'm talking about it because I'm saying, hey, I recognize that pain and I'm not just going to leave it off to the side and not going to just, pretend like it never happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get you. I get you. So let's get into some statistics because there's quite a bit of statistics here.
Yeah, I know.
So according to this, and I think this is from 2010, to be honest, I don't think it's current. This says the U.S. population is just about, I'm rounding up, but it's about 152 million males in the U.S.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably either a little bit more or I don't know. It kind of varies depending on the situation, but
so males affected by depression per year, 6 million.
I mean, guys, think about that. If there's we'll say roughly 152 million males, right? Are we talking just males?
Right. Yeah, just males.
And there's 6 million. I'm not saying. I mean, if you look at that, it may not seem like a lot.
And that says affected by depression. That doesn't say that they're being treated for depression. This says affected by depression.
No, but granted, like I said, if you look at the number and you look at like the overall whole, it may not seem like a lot. It definitely may not seem like a lot. But if you think about that, that means there's so many that, like you just said, that we're not even talking about treating. We're not even just saying affected. I mean, there could be more that they don't even know and they just don't say anything about it. So there's probably number could be skyrocketed, and that, when people say, do you feel, depressed all the time? Well, no offense. I mean, there's things in life that you're going to feel fucking shitty about, like, I know for me, it's like, Well, why do you feel depressed? Well, I'm not making as much money as I'd like to right now, especially with the economy the way it is, or the fact that, when it comes down to like trying to maybe own a house one day, I have no fucking sight in, anything about like owning a house right now, but these are the kinds of things like,
I think it's just it's also the societal thing too. Is like, are you depressed? No, because I'm not a pussy. Because
I'm not a pussy, right? We've talked about that.
That's what society tells me.
Well, and like you said, it's not only right, just not even depression, but I mean, like again, if we go into like more serious, like more mental like illnesses, like schizophrenia or.
Oh, we're going to get to
okay. Well, sorry.
This infographic kind of has like the 5 major mental health things, but. This says 1 in 5 adults experience a mental health problem each year. So that's 5 people that one of them is going to have a mental health problem.
Right. And right. And we're not even saying what it is, because it could be a slew of things, or it could
and that doesn't even say it's men. It just says 1 in 5 adults.
Right. And so to me, right. If I'm just going to say it, let's say if it was just strictly males, right? That means basically 4 of you are lying to yourselves, and the actual one might be actually saying, you know what, I need the help, or I need something to do that. So like at the end of the day, it's like, when I look at, others, so I'm going to just use it as an example of like, I know when I came back from my deployment, the problem was that I saw a lot of guys that were either getting divorced or, I knew that they were I'm going to say they were fucked up from certain events that happened. And, they didn't want to get the right help. I actually remember, and I'll say it as a little side story here, but, my first sergeant, for some reason, decided to call me out of the clear blue one day. We came back, and I think it was like a couple weeks or 3 weeks coming back, and he's like, hey, can I talk to you about something? I said, yeah, what's going on, First Sergeant? He's like, hey, so if you noticed any of if you see any of the guys, do you mind talking with them? And I said, First Sergeant, what do you mean by that? Like, why are you talking to me personally? And he's like, I don't know what it is, but like, I've seen more guys seem like they want to talk, and I feel like they could talk to you about it. And I said, I appreciate that. I said, but I'm going to tell you straight up. And this is where I told him, and this is the truth, is that if they're not willing to get the help, if they're not willing to see their issues, I can only do so much. Right. Because like that's really just the mental health capacity is like, if you're not willing to accept whatever it is that you have a problem with, or if you're not recognizing what that is, I'm not going to be anything to them. I'm just going to be some dude that I just went a deployment with, and that was it. And it was like, I told them, I'll do my best, but I can't help if they're not willing to help themselves, and that's the thing with society is like, as males, we don't, like we said, don't be a pussy. Don't just fucking embrace whatever you got to do going on. Who gives a shit if you're getting a divorce? Who gives a shit about, the other, other lying factors that basically have a major impact on your life? Who gives a fuck if you're about to get out of the military or have no job when you're coming home or find out that your wife is cheating on you or husband or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that's the kind of shit that, we're basically just saying, hey, just fucking suck it up, buttercup, and have fun with it, deal with it on your own time. And it's like, bro, like that's not the fucking answer. And especially when you're coming back home and it's been a year long and all this shit, but that's just one example. But like, who knows, man? Like maybe people in general, like you have problems that you've been dealing with for years, and that just basically is the final straw, and that was it. And now, like you said, are you just saying, okay, well, let me just suck it up for as long as I can, and just fucking say, okay, I'm done.
And I think it's also the fact too is like you can even be talking to your wife or even your kids or maybe a coworker about the shit you're dealing with, and they may not even give 2 shits or may not even understand what you're saying. So it's like we also have this thing that we do, and it's a man thing.
Oh, it's definitely a male thing.
It's what we do. And when we're talking to like our wives or girlfriends or our kids or somebody at work, and we instantly know that one, they don't care, they don't understand, we 100% lose interest in even continuing the conversation, and we just say, fuck it. And we just move on, and we try to dig it. We put it all the way down to our stomachs, and we just, you know what? I'll deal with it the way that I'd always do, because nobody really is going to help me in the way that I'm looking to get helped.
No, and you know what? I'm not going to lie to you, man. I would say even recently, you know, and I'll admit it. I don't care. I'll even publicly say it. When I came home from that deployment, granted, this is now, what, 5-ish? Well, no, about 4 years now, or give or take. You know, I went to the, you know, vet center. I talked to somebody, and, you know, I was dealing with, and I'll even admit it now, I have it, and I don't know why, but like, I still feel I'm angry. Like, I don't know what it is, man. And even Allie tells me all the time, and it drives me insane. And I wish I could figure it out. And I'm actually wanting to go back, and talk to somebody. But the thing is, man, is like, I came home. I know you probably never saw it because I never did it, but like, I was always angry. I don't know what it was. I was angry. I'd blow up. I'd do it in front of people, and they're like, "What's your problem?" I'm like, I'm angry, man. And I couldn't explain why. And it would turn on to her, which, you know, in her household, if you're angry and you're loud voiced, even if you're just loud, that's considered angry. You know, and in my family, as you know, my dad, he's loud as shit.
Oh, yeah.
So I dealt with loud noises all the time because of him and in my interactions. So it's been hard to kind of like, you know, keep it at a lower level. But like, for me, you know, even now, like I'm still angry, and this was 4 years ago. I've just been, you know, kind of, unfortunately, I hate saying it, but I've kind of like shoved that shit down, and I thought I was doing well, but then like all of a sudden recently, it came back full force, and it's like, I wish I could, you know, figure out why, but like, I talked to the woman at the time, and I asked her, and she said she couldn't really diagnose me this, but I asked her, I said, "Hey, do you see any signs of PTSD?" I said, "I understand you can't really diagnose me, but I said, do you see any signs? Is there any indications? Anything that," I was like, "I understand you can't diagnose this." I said, "But do you see anything that would concern you in a sense?" Now, she's like, "Again, I can't give you my opinion, but I said, I do see some inklings, and I've seen some things." And I'm like, okay. And the reason why I asked that question is because it's not about the ratings or, you know, VA ratings or whatever it was. It was more for my awareness to understand, because if that is the case, you know, now if that is the case, now I'm like, well, you know, I need to know. So what I'm going to be doing here shortly, and I've been trying to, but it's like, again, insurance is not always the greatest, but like I'm trying to figure out a way to like, probably here within the next month or so, probably try to go back again and be like, "Hey, I need to talk to somebody again and really like talk about it, because I need to figure out what it is that is really making me angry." Because I try to explain to Allie, and I'm like, I don't know why, you know, and I'll admit, I talked to my dad about some things because him and I have, you know, experienced some stuff, but and I understand, I mean, I get it. It's not a mental health podcast, guys, but you know, unfortunately, where, you know, you're looking at military and stuff like that, you kind of, if you know somebody that's gone through it, you're going to more likely, we just said, we're going to talk about it. We're going to, you know, be able to connect better. So I talked to him about it a little bit, and, you know, I know him and I probably have to have another conversation, but, you know, because he's even noticed that I've been angry and I've snapped at him, and I don't mean to do that. And I think the problem is I'm, you know, being home with my kid and dealing with sometimes that random crying and screaming, and, you know, I'm like, hey, there's no reason for this. He's continuing. I'm talking about my son, you know, and I'm trying to deal with my anger basically, and dealing with him at the same time. And it's frustrating. It is all frustrating. And it's like sometimes I either need to vent or I need to like just step away for like a minute, because I don't want to do anything that I'm going to ever regret, you know, or do certain things. And I hate, you know, I even said, man, like, I don't feel, there's a lot of times where I'm like, I don't feel like my old self, but the problem is because of what I've been through, it's really difficult sometimes to, go back to my old, self that I was beforehand, and these are the kinds of things that as men, especially unfortunately in situations like this, we try to be, we try to go back to a normal life or a normal self again.
Right.
And it's hard to, realize like, hey, you're gone for, let's say, a year or whatever, and you're having to deal with, your family basically moving on with their lives, and you're coming back and you're trying to acclimate yourself to everyone else that has now changed over the last year. And now they got to know you again because you're reintroducing yourself to them. And I can say that it's still been a fucking process, and it's been almost 4 fucking years, man. And that's where I'm saying where even as mental health as a whole, even just for men, women, whatever, you can say, especially like events like that or certain things, it's an everyday process. It's not just a fucking one and done, call it quits, I'm done. Like you can't just be like, okay, fuck you, anger. We're done today, or we're going to be done for the rest of my life. No, man, like that shit's going to keep going and going and going. And then you're like, well, when does it stop? Well, guess what, bud? It's for the rest of your fucking life. It is what it is now. I'm sorry. I know I went on a tangent, but it's just that's the kind of stuff that I've been holding for a while. And I know this was a perfect time to kind of bring it all in.
So yeah, the same infographic lists 5 major mental health problems affecting men. So we've kind of already touched on depression. The 6 million men suffer depression each year. Male depression goes often undiagnosed. And this is kind of really the interesting part, I think. Like, men are more likely to report fatigue, irritability, and loss of interest in work or hobbies rather than feeling sadness or worthlessness, which is...
Honestly, that is like 110% correct.
It's really like a key thing, because I think when you think of depression, you think of the sadness and the worthlessness, which, sure, that's maybe part of depression, but it's not the only symptom of depression. I mean, the fatigue, the irritability, the loss of interest, in work or hobbies or the things that you're doing, men are more likely to report that stuff.
Well, think about it like this, Matt. I mean, what you just said was literally like, that's basically how I felt. And I would say even when I got home, like that was exactly how I felt. Like as men, think about it. What's the one thing that I would think most men, I'm not saying all men because I can't say everybody, but as men, what is the one thing that we need to have in our life? I'm just going to add, it's a general question. I was like, what do you think that is? What is the one thing that men as a whole that we need, just that we need it as just to basically live and continue on with our lives in a sense?
Food.
Well, yes, food is very important. No, and air and everything else. No, I was thinking more like purpose, right? We need a general sense of purpose.
We need purpose. And, honestly, like a lot of times when, as men, like we're asked like, oh, do you feel sad? No.
Because I can either cry about it and bitch about it, but...
And that's the thing, like, you go to like a regular, PCP or a doctor, and they go, oh, do you feel worthless or do you feel sad? No, I don't. But I feel angry as hell for no fucking reason.
Yep, know that feeling.
And half the time I don't feel like going to work. Half the time I don't feel like doing shit. And I just sit there and watch TV for 6, 8, 10, 12 hours. And I do nothing. I don't do the dishes. I'm not talking about myself. I'm just saying, I
mean, at first I was wondering if it was about yourself, but then
just in general, like, you have this just this guy who's like, yeah, I mean, I get tired during the day, but I sit there and I watch TV. I don't do anything, This is what people are doing. And they're like, well, if you don't feel sad or worthless, then you must not really have depression. Well, that doesn't kind of work that way.
Well, again, and I'll say it, men and women, yes, I understand we're talking about like the male physiology and as well as the women physiology. I understand, trans, whatever, but I'm talking about the organs and the mindset here. Males are wired differently than females in the way they interact and how they think about things and basically how they deal with things. So like women, yes, typically are more emotionally, based creatures. They will thrive on whatever their emotion is. So if they're angry as hell, they're going to be fucking pissed at you, or they're going to make it known.
I've always explained it as like women are literally Pandora's box and men are black and white, where yes or no.
Oh, I was going to say creatures of habit, but yeah.
No, we're literally black or white, yes or no. And women are Pandora's box. If you open it up,
you never know which one you're going to get.
It's you might as well just go and hide.
I was going to say it's like what was it, Forrest Gump, when he goes, life is like a box of chocolate. You never know which one you're going to get. It's kind of like that with a female, but you're like, shit, I don't know which one I want to open right now.
You're probably going to get all of it. But all right, so
yeah.
The second one I got here is anxiety. The info is not right away for men. It's just kind of everybody, but approximately 19.1 million American adults. That's 19 American adults ages 18 to 54 have an anxiety disorder.
Well, and so that's the thing about it. When they say general anxiety, right? So like, I would say in general, this is where I feel like today's generation kind of like, and I'm not saying they don't have it. I think it's because, and I will say it, and I know maybe Matt will kind of agree with me on this. It is the parents' job to raise their child a certain way. So when you have these kids that have all these fucking anxiety, I'm not saying that it's not real. What I am saying is there are like people will be anxious. People will have some sort of anxiety towards something. There are things called fears. The biggest fear
phobias,
right, phobias. So the biggest fear that most people will have is the fear of the unknown or fear of change. That is a big common one. That is a typical fear for, I would say, majority of people in life. Okay. Yeah. So when you start having general anxiety as like this person just has general anxiety. So you're saying that if I literally walked around the corner and then this guy was like, "Oh my God, you scared me," like, okay, cool, like that, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But like, if we're saying general anxiety, and this person gets like all freaked out and like, "Oh my God, they're gonna kill me," and like they get crazy about it.
It's sort of like Oprah, like you have anxiety,
you have anxiety, and guess what? You do too, buddy. Like I just.
Yeah,
it's
I do think like, social media, movies, TV shows, like all of this stuff, like we see these commercials, you see things on the news, especially these like little like, you see the commercials, and maybe this is back in the day because everybody does fucking streaming now. But back in the day when people actually watched cable.
Oh, I know, that's crazy.
You would see the advertisements for, News at 11, don't buy this at the grocery store. It'll kill you. Find out at 11. And you're like, what the fuck? I got to watch this at 11.
You're like, shit, I actually bought
What if I bought something?
No, even worse, like, what if you're like, oh shit, it's that box of Cheerios I just bought. Fuck, I got to return it because it's fucking bad for whatever reason. No, I agree with you that, with cable, it's like, or basically with people that have to be like, oh shit, we got to do this right now. So like, that was the interesting part about, what's funny about this next generation or this generation now, funny about streaming, right? You could just skip through a lot of shit. Guess what? When you're watching cable, you can't do shit unless you had TiVo. Hold on, unless you had TiVo and you were like, yeah, I was like, the live TV, fucking fast forward shit. But yeah.
All right, so moving on. I mean,
Sorry, I know.
This kind of does go into just over 3 million men have a panic disorder, agoraphobia, or
so kind of what I mentioned with the fear thing.
Any other phobia. Bipolar disorder. 2.3 million Americans are affected by bipolar. An equal amount of men and women develop the illness, and the age of onset for men is between 16 to 25 years old.
Well, I'll say this now. I'm not going to make fun of anything. It's just bipolar is a very, very hard. Unfortunately, I know Matt knows. Matt knows it very well. But like bipolar as a whole, whether you're male or female, whatever, it is a it is an up and down battle every single day. And like, yes, this is one of the very few, illnesses that unfortunately, this is one that, yes, you basically have to be taking some sort of medication for the rest of your life, because if you do not, and you try to balance it out on your own, it ain't going to work well.
Yeah. It takes medication, it takes counseling, and it takes constant monitoring the rest of your life.
But no, I know. But the problem with this one is like, I mean, and trust me, I know, like I said, Matt knows this too, is like, if you think that you're like, oh, I'm going to save this person, or I'm going to help them, manage it. I'm like, really? I mean, they're the ones that need to manage it. But like, secondly,
there's nothing that you're going to be able to do or say that's going to change their bipolar disorder.
Right.
Like if they're having a real low, there's literally nothing that you're going to say that's going to snap them out of it.
Right. And so this is where, unfortunately, when we talk about patience and, sometimes giving space and doing all these, like, there's a reason why certain illnesses, yes, you can be like, I'm going to leave you alone for a little bit.
Leave you alone. That's not one that you will leave somebody alone. That's something, if they're in that low and they're not listening to you, you need medical intervention, because that's the only way that they're going to get the help they need.
Right. And so, like, that's another thing too. And this is just more of a general statement. I'm not saying that you have to be this, like, I'm your therapist. Like, like you have to be the all knowing, like, I know exactly what your diagnosis is, or like look up fucking WebMD shit, whatever. I know a lot of people like to do that.
No, you should get a
yes, get an actual somebody that actually knows what they're talking about and get it really like looked at. Yeah. But like, if you start to notice certain signs, and this is again for men, I know women can basically point out a lot of shit. Men as a whole, we are very fucking narrow-minded. Sometimes we don't think about the bigger picture in regards to this, but like whether it's, bipolar, anxiety, depression, whatever the hell it is, if you have a buddy, right? And I've said this before, if you have somebody that you're like, hey, I know this guy, I've known him for a long time, and I'm like, damn, dude, like he's really off, like all of a sudden. Yeah, you know what? If you're an actual true friend, if you're a good buddy of that person, do something about it. Maybe help them, and what I mean by help, is like help them to maybe find that resource that they're maybe wanting to get.
We're actually going to be doing an Evolve episode all about that too. So,
well, okay, well then, sorry, but we
will be, yes. But that is exactly what you should be doing if you have somebody in your life that is dealing with something. Let me get through the other two and then kind of fast track through, a statistic on male suicide. We did this in the male loneliness one.
Right, yeah.
But it still applies to this. Psychosis and schizophrenia. This bipolar is serious, but I think psychosis and schizophrenia is like kind of one step above that. 3.5 million people in the U.S. are diagnosed with schizophrenia. It's one of the leading causes of disability. 90% of people diagnosed with schizophrenia by the age of 30 are men. That's 3.15 men.
Again, and this is why when we say the numbers...
This was back in 2011.
Right.
It's so probably higher than that now.
Right. What I'm saying is, too, is that when we mention these numbers, and I understand you may not think this is a lot, but if you start to add like this, anxiety, depression, bipolar, and you start to add those numbers up to the overall, I don't know the exact overall number, but what I'm saying is it could be a quarter. It could be a third of the population. It could be somewhere around that ballpark. That means literally, 75 of us are the lucky ones to not have to deal with a lot of bullshit besides maybe just everyday stuff. But we're talking maybe a quarter of that as males, give or take, could be off. It probably could be a lot lower, but even still, there's still a good amount of men that literally have some sort of issue that they have to now deal with for the rest of their life. And it's not something that is, just, again, free willy-nilly. They can just turn it off at any time they want. They can just turn on and off, switch, whatever. They have to deal with it. It is an everyday thing. It does not mean it just goes away. and like, that's where I'm just saying it's not, we need to talk about it more. And you know what? And this is why I say, start looking out for your buddies, start looking at this stuff, because I'll say this, and I know we'll probably mention the next thing about suicide. Guess what? Males are unfortunately usually on the top of that list when it comes to males versus females.
Oh, yeah. So at least for 3 of them, for depression, psychosis, and bipolar, because anxiety doesn't have a number. Well, they do kind of have a number, but I have just over 12 million.
Versus the, what was it, 152?
Under 152.
Okay. Now, granted, I'm not really quick with math here, but like, it might be a little less than 10% of males. If I'm really throwing a guess out here, I have no idea. But if we're going to compare that to, the 100% of males versus...
It's a little less than 10%.
Okay, so still, that means, 90% of us are lucky to not have to deal with this shit.
Or we just don't
we don't tell anybody, but that means that there's still 10% of people, or at least males, that are at least dealing with something in regards to mental health, no matter what it is. And there might be a lot of us that, maybe just, like you just said, either not knowing that we have it, or we've just been living a lie and we have no idea, because that's called the Matrix. No, I'm just kidding. It's not the Matrix, guys. I'm just... So
getting into the suicide thing, and the statistic that we shared in the men's loneliness episode, it's really staggering. Men die by suicide 4 times more than women do. That's 4 times more. So this, of course, it's 2010. So the number of suicides in 2010 in the U.S. was 38,364. Matt,
I'm just going to say it. That number, in my opinion, should be...
It should be 0, but that's how many in 2010...
No, and the problem is
by suicide.
That means almost 15 years. I will even say it roughly almost 15 years ago. Right. And now we're going to talk about 2024.
And that was obviously pre-COVID, but over 3/4 of those suicides were men. 79% of those were men.
But my point is that because of now we're looking at, again, almost, I understand it's like 14 years ago roughly, but you're looking at that statistic and you're saying, holy shit. Now, that may not, again, seem like a lot versus the 100 or 152 million versus the 38,000, give or take. But at the same damn time, like, you're telling me that if you had a friend that maybe have known somebody that is probably going through some shit, like, let's say you lost your dog, your wife, your kid, your fucking house, your job, everything else, you don't think that motherfucker is probably going to want some help? There's just things that you may think in that moment that, hey,
out of those 38,364, basically 7,266 people were female.
That's what I'm saying, guys. Like that's insane.
It's crazy. And yet we're told as men, like, suck it up, deal with it.
The wrong fucking answer, guys. Like the answer is,
we're obviously not fucking dealing with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's so bad that it, and I'm laughing not because it's funny, but because it's that fucking ridiculous that in 2010 it was 4 times, and it wasn't even COVID back then.
Oh,
and 2020 we had COVID. So is it still 4 times now?
You're right. I don't know. I mean, it could now during the time of COVID, I mean, it could have easily probably increased because of the fact that nobody was working, or if they were working from home. And then now you're having to deal with a lot more at home. And then guess what? I hate saying it, guys and gals, when you actually have to stay home with your significant other and everybody else, and you're all cooped up in one fucking spot, it gets a lot, and you can't go anywhere, and you're like, well, fuck, what do I do? Well, you can't really go anywhere besides your backyard, or maybe to some other place that you can maybe socially not really hang out with each other. But the point is it was hard, and even now we still have protocols from COVID that we still kind of sort of follow, but like now it's more of a norm to basically have a mask on. if anyone, because like before when you had a mask, you're like, oh shit, they have like the flu or they have something that they can't really get from other people, like whatever it was. Now it's more of like, okay, somebody has a mask. Okay, we just don't, 6 feet away, whatever, not a big deal. But like, you start to look at it, back then, yeah, people, if they were wearing, imagine now everybody back in 2010 wearing masks and other shit like that. It would probably cause some concern of like, why are people doing that? But like, and I, again, totally random, but like, looking at the numbers from then till now, I mean, you're right, Matt. I don't know exactly how much it would be. But at this point, when you start to look at 38,000, it could have been, I don't know, it could have been 100. It could have been 200. I don't know. My point is, why are we getting it that high? Why are we going above and beyond when really, guys, it's like I've just said before, like, if you notice something, then talk about it. Don't just assume that guy's okay, because shit, man, like anybody who thinks that life is easy, I'm like, you got to teach me that secret, man, because I'd love to know what the fuck you're doing that is making your life so damn easy. But like, if you're telling me, how, and unfortunately, this is where I'll say it, males, yes, we deal with things differently, but even as males, whatever a crisis might be for me may not be a crisis for you. And vice versa, because like that's another thing that I feel like we don't talk about. Yes, we do embrace a suck, but our version, like every male's mind is also different in how they think too, in a sense, and that we also may think that our crisis of like, hey, you know what? Okay, I lost my dog. Okay, whatever, But somebody else, it could be like their whole fucking world, and that could really impact them to another degree.
Oh, I can tell you we had lost our dog Lucy. Right at the beginning, I think it was right at the beginning of October.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I think it was, yeah.
And it was one of the probably most devastating things for me, just personally. And I mean, just being honest right now, being as close as I was to obviously my family, my dog Lucy was the one thing that I think lived in my house that one didn't judge me. She loved me for, what I was and not who I was or what I looked like. Like I could have come out looking like a slob and she honestly wouldn't have cared less. And it just was, that devotion that she had to not just me, but to everybody in the house. Did she bark like crazy?
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. She barked her freaking head off.
Oh, let me tell you, all those times I ever came over to his house, my God, that dog wouldn't shut up. But yeah.
But she was very, very loyal and very, very loving.
Yeah, what she wants to be.
And she was just, that dog that like I could just trust that would be there. And then to just have to put her down in the way that we did was just so devastating. And that's, it's not something like, most people would be like, oh yeah, if you're, and I think this goes back to, back in the day, if your dog was sick, you just take it in the backyard and shoot the thing because, well, that's what you do.
Okay, Lassie, turn away. That's basically the same idea, but yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my wife and I, like, we were devastated. I mean, it was like, we've had Lucy for 14 years. She was part of our family. And for me, it was just a deeper connection because it was just, she was, just something that I could trust that wasn't going to judge me for anything.
Oh, so you're saying that you can't trust me, and you're saying
it's not that you don't, but
no, I know.
If I came in here looking like a slob, you'd be like, "Hey, why you look like a slob?"
Oh, come on, you tell me if I look like a slob too. I'd just be honest with you.
But with Lucy, I wouldn't have to. I didn't have to worry about anything. You know what I mean? It's just that comfort in knowing, like, no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter what I look like, she'd be right there, and that's just the feeling of that where. Other people might be like, dude, it's just a fucking dog.
Well, right. I mean, right. I just used that as an example, but I mean, again, it's anything that is, again, a deep connection with that, it could be a thing, it could be a person, it could be whatever the hell it is. But like, again, as males, we have, again, as a society, we've already been mentioning this, like we've been basically told, let me rephrase that. Not told, we've been programmed to do certain things because that is how our society views us. So we need to act a way that is basically societal.
There's a societal stigma, John.
And your
societal stigma.
Oh, here we go. This is going to be a fun one, but go ahead.
Yeah, this is my, there's another thing that happens in June. And, obviously if you're like, well, what happens in June? Like Juneteenth? No, get the fuck out of here with the Juneteenth shit. Or, Father's Day. I'm talking about Father's Day, all right? Not this Juneteenth crap. Like, get out of here with this.
I'm not going there, Matt, because this is a different story. But yeah,
Father's Day happens in June, and when I was doing research for the episode, I came across this article, and this is probably like the worst load of horseshit that I've ever read in my life, and I'm going to read it because it's just crap.
I think he's going to more like paraphrase some of the things, but yeah, I don't think
I'm reading this word for word.
Oh, you're okay? Then never mind. Just kidding.
I'm going to read
right ahead.
I'm going to read this word for word.
Okay, then I guess we'll dissect it as we go.
So this is from an article. This guy is a clinical psychologist.
Well, he might need to rethink his career path, but yeah.
But it's basically he's saying this. Historically, mothers were seen as the people who were not thanked enough for the work they did, and therefore needed a day of focus. Says Ferrier. Father's Day was always a bit of a joke, giving recognition to someone who didn't really deserve it. The man may have been fine at providing an income, but potentially neglected his fatherly role.
So let's stop right there for 1 second. So I know we're both going to say some shit about this, but the fact that this guy, okay, let's start off with this. He's a male talking about historical facts and then saying that Father's Day was always a bit of a joke, giving recognition to someone who didn't really deserve it. Now, this is where I've mentioned to you, and this is where we kind of talked about that generational effect. Maybe if you're talking about a certain generation back in the day of how these men were basically raised in that regard, maybe that statement would be somewhat correct.
If you're talking about a certain minority of fathers who were, one, abusive, neglectful, or not present, sure.
Right, that's what I mean. Like a generational, that maybe minority group of people, yes.
But this is not what he's referring to. He is clearly just referring to
the male
fathers,
species.
like fathers as a whole group.
And so that's what I mean is like, and I actually just mentioned this. So guys, I mean, I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this before, and I'm pretty sure, oh, that's right. Both you and my father were making a joke about the whole, was it the Hulk Hogan? Like, oh, Mr. Lady or whatever the hell it was. You know what I'm talking about?
Mr. Mom.
Oh, Mr. Mom? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Well, so, yes, that's me, okay? You can make all the fucking jokes you want. But basically, what I'm doing now is basically being a stay-at-home dad. It was never a fucking... Well, let me rephrase that. It was probably taboo. It was probably a lot of things. If you were a stay-at-home dad, let's say in the 50s, 60s, whatever, you were probably shamed. You were probably... shunned from social gatherings, all kinds of shit, because you weren't providing for your family. Because in that circumstance, the males were the providers. They were the ones that were supposed to provide for the family, so on and so forth. And the women were stay-at-homes and everything else. So if you were the male doing that back then, you would have been fucking done. You basically wouldn't have a life in this case.
I hate what this guy's saying. It just... the only thing I agree with this whole first part of his paragraphs here is the very first line. It was where he says, like, mothers were seen as people who were not thanked enough for the work they did and therefore needed a day of focus. That, like, I can understand that.
And I agree.
I can completely understand that. But to say, like, Father's Day was always a bit of a joke, which today it still is kind of a joke. And I'm being 100% real. It's still kind of a joke.
We don't, because the thing is, if you look at the top 5, like most celebrated holidays, Mother's Day is easily, I'm pretty sure on the top. I don't know if it's like 1 or 2, but it's up there.
There's a couple places that list it as 6. Other places list it like closer to like 10, but
it's a lot higher than fucking Father's Day.
But you look at, well, Mother's Day is like 3rd or 4th, but you look at what he says after this, and it's like, it's always a bit of a joke. Giving recognition to someone who didn't really deserve it. And then we may have been fine providing an income, but we potentially neglect our fatherly role. Okay, well, that's not all of us.
No. I mean, you could literally work a job.
It's
still
not
be
all
a father at home.
Yeah, it's not all of us. And it's such a smack in the face. And I'll continue with this. Men's roles in society are becoming less rigid. And we are thankfully starting to see men take their role as protector and nurturer of their families more seriously. We're starting to see the first green shoots of domestic work being split more evenly, and men are taking a role in raising their children with these positive changes. Men may deserve a day of celebration for their role as a father.
So, again, being said that, but that last line that he said, may deserve a day.
May.
So, right. Not saying that they do deserve a day or whatnot. I think, again, and this could also be about mothers too. And I mean, I know we're probably going to say it too, but like, if you don't have a father figure or even a motherly figure in your life that was basically raising you to be the man or woman that you are, whatever, and that's in our sense, men. So if you don't have either one, you're just as important than, you can't just say the mother has all the fucking roles and like they need to raise their son the right way. No, it's also the man's job, because you as the male understand where this son in this case, or, young man who's supposed to be raised as a man or as a man that is being worthy of hopefully one day of a woman or a partner or whatever the case is, right? Yeah. To basically show him what a man should be in that sense. And so you cannot tell me that the mother is the only one, especially nowadays, basically being in charge of that. Now, I'm not, like I said, if you're a male or if you're a father and you're raising a son by yourself, yeah, you're playing kind of both roles, but that's a very hard. And just like with the mom, because I'll admit, unfortunately, growing up, like, I'm not saying my dad wasn't always there, and this is where I hate pointing him out a little bit, but like, there was just certain things that I wish he was there to help me with that my mom had to kind of do, and then I had to kind of figure it out too. But my point is it doesn't matter. It doesn't. You can't tell me that one or the other is more as important. They're both equally important in that role, raising their son.
Yeah, and obviously there's a societal stigma that follows men. And yeah, as men, like, we're not going to be sentimental about these like really, silly knick-knacky gifts that we give mom. Like, we're not, if you give us flowers and,
I might just tell you that, hey, you might as well just either go plant it outside or go do something else with it. But yeah,
we're not gonna dig that. I mean, I guess some guys would, but
if you like planting, but yeah,
that'd be weird. But we just don't want to be forgotten simply because we live in a male dominated society. Like, most men, and there are men that walk around with that, like, I'm a male macho,
machismo, yeah, but yeah.
But most men don't walk around thinking like they're the shit and everybody should like
worship them and
bow down. Like, we just don't walk around like that. So this guy is saying like we just don't deserve recognition, or that when we can finally step up to society's like ever growing expectation, which is like, the line's here. Well, I've reached the line. Well, no. The line's here now. Like, okay, now I've reached that line. Well, no, now it's like, it's way up here now. Like, when we can finally reach the expectation that they have of us, like, we can maybe hope to deserve maybe a celebration.
All I'm going to say is that when you look at how this guy is saying about dads in general, you know, I really hope this guy's not a dad. Because if he is, then my God, this has got to be a fucking issue for
he ain't getting no fucking celebration. I can tell you that.
No, I agree, and I mean, and the fact that he's now like in that like second or really the first part of what you said was like, you know, we're just now starting to see the fact that they're going to split the work evenly. I'm not saying that, you know, I depend again. This is where I'm going to say it. Generationally speaking, you know, I would say. And I'll say it. I know you probably can agree. Like Generation X, okay, yeah, this is where Matt comes into play. You know, and depending on where you were landing and then millennials and whatnot, you started to see that little bit more and more.
Well, I think, I mean, you also have to look at the times too, because, you know, you may say that like, yeah, you know, fathers in the 40s and the 50s were different, but society was different then.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying is like depending on how you were looking at it and what was going on really in the world. I mean, if you're looking at World War II, well, first of all, you're not going to really have a father figure around because he's probably in the war at that fucking time. Or
right,
so.
But I mean, we're also looking at it with like our viewpoint now.
Well,
where back then they didn't see the world how we see it nowadays. They only saw what they knew.
Right. Well, then that's the thing about...
And we can look back and go, well, your dad was just an asshole. I mean, that's just what I see. But back then, like, that was what fathers did.
Well, hold on. And I'll say it. It was also a generational effect. It wasn't just that generation. It could have been the ones beforehand. And it could have been a fucking cycle, which I can tell you that is probably 100% true because I can tell you straight up, and I'm just going to mention this real quick. Is I look at my grandfather and I look at my great grandfather and probably his beforehand and all this stuff. I've heard stories about certain things.
Oh, I'm not saying.
No, I'm just saying, but like I look at that cycle and then literally, you know, I'm looking at my dad, you know, and like, for example, and I hated saying this, but like the reason why it was so hard for me to get along with my grandfather is because he decided that both my brother and I really weren't, and I hate saying this, but him and I were apparently we weren't, you know, worth his time to be able to basically spend that time with him as a grandfather. Now, I'm not saying I couldn't step up either, but I mean, I didn't have a lot of time during that time to be like, hey, I'm going to go hang out all the time and go do that. But as a grandfather, as a father, whatever, your goal is hopefully to be like, hey, I'm going to go spend some time and do that. But like, and this is where I would say my dad and I have gone a lot better, but like during that time, it's like, it's hard to say that I would be like, yep, my grandfather's the one I really want to like look up to. I can tell you there's things that I'm like, that is the opposite of what I want to be as a man.
Yeah.
Or as a father.
I mean, I'm definitely not saying that men back then were perfect, but you also have to look at the times and look how parenting was back then before, you know, and like I said, not everybody.
No, I know, not everybody.
Back then were ideal parents, but like I said, you have to look at how parenting was before laying the judgment. But this guy clearly is just laying the judgment on everybody.
No, yeah, depending on wherever it is.
There are so many, you know, and this is part of like what I'm saying. Like, not every father is deserving, but there are a lot of great dads. Like, there are fathers who even take the responsibility for fathering a child that they didn't create. Like I'm one of them. Like I know. I came into, you know, my wife's life when she already had a child, and I stepped into that role, not because I certainly wanted to. I loved her, and
it was a package deal at that moment.
In order to love her, I wanted to also love her daughter. And so the logical step for me was, I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be this girl's father.
Correct.
And that was what it was. And now this guy is saying, well, when I take the role as protector and nurturer more seriously and not potentially neglect my role as father, I may potentially deserve a day of celebration. It's just like somehow, because like men get credit in society for, you know, we're male dominated, like we get some kind of a joke day, right? Like we get a joke day, even though like we're literally killing ourselves 4 times more than women do, and nobody talks about it because we're supposed to be the strong protector. Like this is like the shit that we as men deal with, but we don't talk about to anybody.
No, and Matt, this is why I'm saying I agree. Like literally, I've been saying this from the very beginning, and it's this is why I'm saying about when we talk about a male-dominated society, it's like the fact of the matter is like we as men, yes, if we look back at our even biological ancestors, things like that, yes, if you look back at the fact that literally the cavemen, like we were the ones that were supposed to protect the herd, protect the basically our surroundings in a sense. And then the women were the gatherers and they were supposed to be the nurturers and this and that. And yes, and I would say nowadays we've started to learn that you can do both. You can be both the protector and I mean, it doesn't always have to be like always the nurturer, but at least the one saying, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to make this, we're going to do as best as we can. Because even as dads, okay, just like I would say as human beings, we fuck up, right? We make mistakes. We do all this shit.
Certainly not perfect, no.
Well, no, but like at the end of the day, is like we say, hey, I understand this may not be perfect now. I said, but the best thing I can do for you is be here for whenever you need me to be there for you and try to do it as best as I can. And it may not be great every time because at the end of the day, we're human and we fuck up just like everybody else. But yes.
And you know what? Like the one thing that this guy never mentions is the flip side of this is that not every mother deserves a day of celebration either.
Go ahead, Matt, because I know this is you.
I'm just one, I have a mother who gave birth to me, but does not have a relationship with me. But somehow, I'm supposed to celebrate this because I came out of her body? Is this this is the thing that we're doing as a society? Like, well, she gave birth to you. Big fucking whoop. I can pass a kidney stone, but I'm not going to fucking celebrate the thing, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right. I know what you mean. I know, and I agree because, like I said, it doesn't matter. That's why I even said before, like the whole Father's Day, Mother's Day.
There literally are women who are addicts who will give birth to a baby and leave the fucking hospital
and say, "Okay, peace out."
And according to this guy, they still deserve a day to be celebrated because they weren't thanked enough for the work they did. What work did they do?
I think the problem is that. This is where I've noticed this a little bit too, is that, I know people will make the joke like, mothers, we push, we do this, we do that. I'm like, don't get me wrong. I appreciate the hell out of everything that you do. You carry a child, you do all this, you make it happen, and you push the baby out, and you do whatever is necessary to basically provide for that kid in that exact moment when they come out. I understand that us guys are like, oh, all right, we're good. And then we're just there as basically, and I'll say it, it's moral support throughout the whole pregnancy and to do whatever we can to help protect that child and your significant other. So for me as a male, right, I'm not saying I want to go through all the shit that the women have to do in that moment. What I am saying is that when you say, oh, well, you just did one thing, it's like, bitch, I'm like, you may think I've only done one thing. But how many things have I done to really say, hey, I'm here for you, and I'm doing this for you and this baby, whether boy, girl, whatever. I'm here. Like, I could be fucking elsewhere right now. I could be that fucking dad who goes to the fucking store and be like, I gotta go pick up some milk and never fucking return. I could be that guy if you'd like. But then you look at those guys who do that shit, and then you look at the guys that are saying, hey, you know what, I'm going to stay right here because this is my family. This is my, legacy. This is my thing that I'm providing and I'm doing because I want to, not because I'm just some asshole and that wants to walk away and just call it a day. That's the kind of shit that, when people say that, it's like, no, trust me, there are plenty of asshole dudes that fucking, oh, I don't give a fuck. All right, peace out. And then they have fucking 12 fucking babies, Nick Cannon, and so on and so forth. But what I'm saying is like, you cannot tell me that men do not have any role besides just doing that. I think there's more to this that we don't talk about, because we only focus on the fact that, yes, physically the females will do all the things that we can't physically do. But it doesn't mean if I could take that pain away from, basically, in this case, my wife, if I could take some of that, or relieve some of that stress, relieve whatever it is, I would fucking do it because I want to help her in whatever way that I can. You know what I mean? And like, that's the kind of shit where I look at people and they start making jokes about that. It's like, if I could do it, I would fucking do it. But I know I can't physically, so I'll do whatever the hell I need to do to make this as hopefully an easy transition. You know, but I don't know. That's just my way of thinking of it.
It just comes down to it. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously the mothers do go through a lot giving birth, but it doesn't stop there. You know,
it's an everlasting. It's literally for the rest of your life. You know, nothing else.
Mothers do a lot of things. I mean, they provide like more of like emotional support. They provide a lot, but a lot of what fathers do is, and I put it kind of in these terms of like when you're talking about, you know, maybe like video production or sound production, like fathers really kind of sometimes are the behind the scenes guys.
That's basically what it is.
They will come in, maybe discipline when need to. They provide the income. Maybe they'll, you know, cook the dinners, but they're always behind the scenes guys. And for a lot of fathers, yeah, maybe Father's Day isn't a huge day. Maybe it is a bit of a joke. But the thing with men is a lot of us aren't prideful about it. We're not going to sit here and talk about like, oh, I provided the income. Like, what the hell? I deserve a day. Like, we don't do that.
No, we don't, because we just do it because that is how we are.
But I can guarantee you, when Father's Day comes around and nobody bothers to recognize anything, that's where that depression, that's where that mental health comes into play. And we go, well, I guess nobody really gives a shit about the years that I've spent raising, you know, these kids.
Well, and you know what sucks too is that, you know, when you look at May as a month, right, you have Memorial Day, you have Mother's Day, right? So unfortunately, Memorial Day, you know, being, right, it's fucking stupid how they do it. And that's neither here or there. But like, you look at how, yes, we celebrate the mothers on that day. But then when you look at Father's Day is like, again, more related to like graduations and, you know, school ending and so on, there are fucking things. And then you're like, oh, well, we got to graduate. You know, we got to celebrate my kid who just graduated and blah, blah. Like, okay, well, you know, I'm not saying that I can't recognize the fact that you've done something, that you've graduated where you know, you've done whatever. But like you just said about raising and teaching that discipline and teaching those lessons that, you know, I'll say it, whether you're, you know, a son or a daughter. I'm not saying that every mother has to have those certain conversations with their sons or daughters, but like, you know, there's probably, again, there's going to be things that, you know, mothers will do for their kids that we won't do, but we're going to have probably more, I'll probably say it. I mean, I would rather have a more serious, real conversation with my son about certain life, you know, goals and things of that nature. I'd be more real with him than probably my wife, because she might be like, okay, what do you want to do, honey? Do you want to, you know, you want to be an astronaut? Oh, that's great. You should do that. I want to tell him straight up. I'm like, listen, that's a lot of fucking work if you want to be an astronaut. I want to just tell you, like, I'm going to list everything out because I want him to know the real expectations. I want him to know the reality of life, you know?
Right.
And that, as men, is what we do, is we teach the reality that we need to teach the overall picture, because it's not fucking rainbows and sunshine everywhere you go. We're the ones saying, hey, guess what? You know, there is a world out here and there's a lot of shit that you need to know before you really just jump out and start living your life.
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think, you know, yes, fathers do a lot, but like I said, I think it just, because a lot of it is behind the scenes and a lot of it's not seen, it doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. And it's really sad that guys like this is literally just saying, like, you know, we may deserve it one day, but who knows?
I mean, the way I look at it too, like just like with Mother's Day, I mean, or really just if you look at Christmas, if you look at Thanksgiving, I mean, look at all the holidays, and we always say, oh, well, we need to be more grateful. Bitch, you need to be grateful every day of the year for every single day that you're alive on this planet, every single day that you're here and doing this stuff. Be grateful for the fact that, for example, like, let's say, for example, for me, right? I my mother and I have had some hardships throughout the years and stuff. But at least I am grateful for the fact that I actually have a mom and that we are doing better and stuff like that. But like, I know, and for your case, like it sucks. Like I'll admit it, man. Like I know you kind of think of it, whatever, but I would literally hate not having like somebody I could talk to, or having that motherly something. You know what I'm saying? Like I am grateful for the fact that I have that. I'm not just saying that just because, but like, even having a dad, like having just him around, being able to talk, like that's the kind of shit that, I wish, and I wish, man, and I know it is what it is now, but these are the kinds of things that I'm grateful for because again, I could be in that same situation and not really basically have anything, and I just have to do it by myself, or I have to do these things. But like that's the kind of shit that we need to start thinking about, even if it's just when we say it's one fucking day. No, it's every fucking day. Like you need to realize that.
And that's why, I mean, at the, just to, I guess to cap this off, like, that's why it should be so important. I mean, yes, we were talking about every day, but like for June to be a month where we bring awareness to this, because, I mean, one, what we just talked about for Father's Day, but for men's mental health in general, I mean, it's such a huge thing for guys that don't talk about it. And it's going to continue. I mean, this episode is going to be right in the last week of June, and I still have not seen anything men's mental health other than Googling it.
Yeah, well, that's my point. And then, like you said, Mother's Day, oh my God. That's like probably one of the most talked about like posts ever that you can ever find. I'm not saying Father's Day isn't either, depending on who you are, but like,
yeah, and you go on a lot more. You go on some of the streaming services, and they'll have
Happy Mother's Day,
They'll have Happy Mother's Day, and they'll have all the, movies and TV shows that go for Mother's Day.
And where does it say anything about Father's Day in like that June, basically? I never see it. Or like happy graduation, it's like, what? What about Father's Day? Like, what is this shit going on? And I agree with you, but like you start to look at like different stores and they have like the different discounts. Like, oh, look at those newly graduates and fathers, and then they have to like add it into the graduates. It's like, bitch, like fathers.
It doesn't make it
different with the graduate. I don't know.
It doesn't make it any worse with all the DEI, content, which we're going to actually talk about in the next episode, John. But
yes, I know
it certainly doesn't help with men and everything with this whole DEI nonsense that they're pushing all over the place. But
I mean, anyways, guys, we appreciate the hell out of you. I really hope that, you men and women, listening to this, especially you guys, you need to start looking at this as a serious thing, because at the end of the day, God damn it, stop. And I'll say it. I don't care, man. I'll say it just like I told Matt before. Stop being a pussy. Start acting on, start actually doing something about it. Don't think that being a man is just sitting behind the scenes and not doing a damn thing about it. It is basically owning your shit, and you realize what it is, and that you actually find the help that you need, so you become, ready, a better man. Mm-hmm. Like we've said that before about this whole evolve thing. You need to become better than yourself. Guess what? We make mistakes. We make certain things. I've even admitted that I still need help, and I'm going to need help for the rest of my life, man. And I know you're going to need help for the rest of your life, but here we are, and we're just talking about it.
And it's not taking huge steps. It's like you can take little steps at a time, but it's about adapting to your situation and overcoming, and that's how you evolve.
Right. Hence the fucking, name of the fucking series that we're doing. But anyways, guys, we appreciate the hell out of you. Again, happy Father's Day, which was technically already passed. But again, we appreciate all those men and women out there. But really, we're going to be focusing on the men here today. And again, check us out. Send a little follow, little comment here and there. We always like to hear from people besides Jeff. Just saying. But anyways, guys, until next time,
stay geeky.